Thank you all very much for joining me this morning. This is quite unusual for me today. I don't normally get into talking about technology and detail. Normally I talk big pictures, big theories, concepts, data strategy, data culture, that kind of thing. So today, I'm quite nervous about what we're doing here. I'd like to thank Snowflake for giving me this opportunity to talk to you. And I'm going to talk to you about what we're doing with Snowflake technology at Outra and some of the amazing things we're doing to deliver insights and data outputs for our clients. Before I start that, I just want to work out where the energy is in the room is, where the home crowds are, where the disruptors are likely to be. So first off, in a minute, I'd like you to put your hand up if you report into what I would call technology. If you report into a CTO or a CIO or a technology function rather than a data function. So put your hands up if you think you're one of those. Okay, there's a few of you. Thank you for coming to Big Data London. Nice to see you here. Right, other crowd. If you report into a CDO or somebody of that nature, Chief Data Scientist, Chief Head of Analytics, something like that, let's see you. Okay, there's bigger number, which is great. I don't know what the rest of you are doing here, because if you're not in either of those camps, I'm not quite sure why you're here, but there we go. Enjoy. Right, the next thing, let's find the next crowd. Put your hands up if you've been on the Carruthers and Jackson Summer School. Let's see where the real home team are. There we are, thank you. Good to see you all. See some faces at last. And now the real hecklers are going to give me a lot of hassle during this talk. The Outra team. Stand up, because this is all about you guys. Stand up, the Outra team. There you are. They're the troublemakers who are going to give me a really hard time. Okay? And if you have any questions afterwards, come to the Snowflake stand and they can answer all your questions. Okay, let's get going. I'm going to talk about the perfect blend of smart people and smart technology. So the smart people, let's be clear, are predominantly that lot there. And the smart technology is predominantly Snowflake. So that's what I'm going to talk about. How you bring and organize really clever people around really good technology to get amazing business outcomes. So, Outra, I've got to give you a bit of context first. In other words, what do we do? Why are we doing this? We deliver the best predictive data in the UK on households. We predict how households will behave as consumers. We have data on 30.8 million households, believe it or not, that's sitting in Snowflake by and large. We have 75 billion data points at property level. We have 2,500 roughly attributes on every household in the UK. We cover 81% of all listings for sale or renting that go onto the market in the UK. We address match those to 90% accuracy, and we have over 60 plus sources of data. So we're consuming huge amounts of data to try and predict how households will behave. What is one of those examples? I'll give you two examples of things we predict. We predict which households in Britain will list their properties either for sale or for rent in the next 6 months. And I need to get one of my bits of paper here. The accuracy, just to make sure I get this right. P2L, roughly 1 in 3 to 1 in 5 accuracy rate. When you consider there is no signal that tells you when people are going to list their property, that is amazing work that these guys are doing. The other one is once somebody's listed their property, we predict the week in which it will complete and they will move. And on that, we're hitting around 80% accuracy. So taking all of that data, these are the sorts of outcomes we give to our clients, estate agents, property developers, or anybody who's interested in people moving house. And that is a big consumer moment. So, that's the background of what we do at Outra. I'm going to talk to you about people, process and technology. And any of you who've been in the summer school will know that this is one of my hobby horses. Any transformation has to have these three things in balance. Okay? So I'm going to work through how we do that. The technology piece. Let's start there. Again, unusual for me to start with technology. The technology piece we are using is Snowflake and Snowpark. Has anybody heard of Snowpark here? Put your hands up if you've heard it. Excellent. Ooh, interesting, it's that side of the room. Excellent. Snowpark. Latest release, probably from Snowflake, sits in that environment, is a very, very useful tool to be used. I think, Charlie, nod at me, it was around May that we started looking at this, and we've now got it in production. So I'm going to tell you how we got it in production and what we're using it for. So our technology strategy, very high level. This is one of Alex Young's slides, who's over there. Ingest, automate, store, model, analyze, and consume, and put it out the far end for our customers. That is our principle. And I think these things here, our technology strategy is based on, and you're going to have to listen to the second part of each sentence here really carefully. Build before buy, but not always. Cloud first, but not always. Use open source before licensed software, but not always. Don't let these become a mantra, a dogma in what you're trying to do. Have them as principles, as guiding principles, but always choose the best technology for the job, even if it's not cloud, or even if you have to buy it. And obviously, we're licensing Snowflake because it actually does an amazing job for us. But that is, high level, our technology strategy. We've been moving from a whole bunch of legacy things that were there pre-February 2022, probably there since about 2018, and we've been slowly moving into what we call our data fabric, and this is where we want to get to mid-24. And you can see some interesting things have been changing. This is very significant. This is our infrastructure as code. This is highly elastic, it's highly scalable, and we can really control the cost of our infrastructure. You come over here, you'll see a common theme here. Snowflake is coming through, Amazon S3 is coming through, and we've introduced MongoDB, you'll see in a minute, as a data catalog layer. We haven't bought a data catalog, we've built our own. In this space, we've done away with some proprietary kit, and we've gone almost completely open source. And this is largely where a lot of our IP sits, here and here. That's where our IP sits. It has value. Here, in our data science solutions, we're trying to phase out some of these things and come in with some of these things. And here, at the consume end, we're doing away with a variety of things, and we're bringing in mainly that one there. There's a piece missing, which we launched a week ago. We've launched a digital marketplace on the end here, so people can consume and access our data almost as SaaS. Built-in APIs, built-in payment systems, so they can take our data straight out. I didn't realize this one built, Alex. Thank you very much. There we go. So, now built. This is our architecture in a bit more detail. Obviously, our consumption. This is where I'm going to talk about today. This middle piece here. This is where our Snowflake and our Snowpark environments are. Team, am I right? Nod at me? Yeah, they're nodding. Good. I'm still doing well. Okay. This layer here is the MongoDB layer. And as we ingest data, we drop the metadata down here. We put it into MongoDB. We've built a React.js front end, a website. So we've actually built our own data catalog. It's self-referencing data. It knows what it is. I don't want to ponder too much on that, but that is the space I'm going to be talking about now. Process. This is crucial. This is the bit that I'm going to upset the people who put their hands up first, the tech guys. Any CTOs in the room? Wow. That's good. That's a good sign, because I'm not going to upset anybody. This is an operating model which I'm sure most of you are used to. You quite often see the CIO here. It could be the COO. We've seen that before. And you have a CTO and you have a CDO reporting into that person at the top. A lot of the ideas, a lot of the thinking, a lot of the culture, a lot of the transformation tends to be driven from this end and going down this way. It's driven by technology. It's driven by your digital teams who have this great idea they want to do something. And the span of responsibilities, the CTO looks after the infrastructure, the platform, quite often the data engineering. I've been places where the CTO has been responsible for data engineering, CDO is responsible for data analytics and data science. The decision intelligence often is just left hanging out the side. What do you do with the insights? How does it work? It often sits with the business and they don't really understand what's going on this side. They get a bit frustrated that things aren't coming this way fast enough. They can't get hold of stuff. The other thing to pick out from this operating model is that data governance tends to be driven from this direction. It tends to be the CDO's office, the head of data governance, who's trying desperately to get data lineage, who's trying to get a catalog built, and they're trying to force it back this way to the origin of the data. How many of you are struggling to get data governance, cataloging across your organizations? Yep, there we go, universal. That is a universal problem. I'll show you the solution in a minute. Now, this is what we're all about. This is what we're trying to do, business outcomes. And I'm sure if you walk around the theatres here today and you talk to any of the stands, everybody is really focused on business outcomes. There's no point in us doing our jobs if we don't deliver the most awesome business outcomes. There's no point in us being around if we aren't delivering that. I had a conversation with Simon this morning, and it's top of your agenda with the people you're working with. It's all about business outcomes. We want to deliver transformation, transformational change to the way we are working and the way our clients are working. We want agility. We want to be able to pivot quickly. We want to be able to change direction. We want to pick up new ideas. And then speed to market. Now, this model, in my mind, from my many years of experience, does not support those things particularly well. Who would agree with that? Hands up. Who would? Okay, I've got a little bit of a following on this one. Okay, good. What about if you do that? What about if you do away with the CTO, you put the CDO there, and you have reports in here around infrastructure, director of engineering, director of data science? It changes the whole dynamic. Because the CDO then has a remit, a span of remit of responsibility that covers everything right the way through. It means that data governance is embedded from end to end, because this person here is deeply in their heart. It's what they want to do. They will not allow any data to come into the organisation, into the infrastructure or the platform without knowing what it is, where it's come from, what it's used for, who owns it as it moves through the organisation. Now, I think you then end up with those red arrows going the other way. The business starts saying, we need this, we want to do this, can you answer this for us? And you actually start the flow of ideas going the other way, and technology and the infrastructure becomes the servant of the business. That, I think, is where we need to get to. Then, the things you want to deliver, business outcomes, transformation, agility, the speed of moving, and then speed to market. Speed of moving, the agility, the ability to move direction, change direction, come up with new ideas and put them into action, or we'll prototype them or try them quickly. I have spent years, Alex Young, who's been with me 5 times, and other people who I've known from my career, have known that I've had endless battles with these people. I've been trying to push the business needs, the business ideas, and it's, well, no, it's not on our roadmap. Sorry. No, we're not doing that. But I know that that's what they want. So I don't have, apart from in my own head, any of those conversations any longer. I can resolve them myself by working with my team. So that's process. It's an operating model. And I think that getting the operating model right is absolutely crucial for delivering these things. And one of the examples I'm going to talk about in a minute is actually about speed to market and agility. So, people, smart people, and it's going to embarrass a few of you, and some of you are disappointed because your picture's not up here, but this is the spread of people across my teams, where I had those director of engineering, director of infrastructure, we have a head of IT, we have a head of infrastructure, head of transformation, head of engineering, head of analytics, joint heads of data science, and that's the team. I was a bit reluctant about putting their names and their pictures up here in case you want to poach them, but try, because they ain't going anywhere, I hope. Okay? These are smart people who are doing amazing things. So my job, it'll be interesting to see the reaction from them, this is a real litmus test, my job is to enable them to do great things. Is to try and keep that umbrella off them to stop the rain and the cloud and the other things which we might describe it as from falling on top of them, to give them space and budget and ideas to do great things. And when the sun comes out, take the umbrella down and let the sun beat down on them. That is, I think, the job that I have as a CDO. Right, let's get into an example. Now, this is embarrassing for me. I don't think I've done a presentation in the last 10 years where I've actually had notes. but because I'm working on somebody else's slides, I'm working on the piece of work that one of these great people did, I want to get it right. And he's in the audience as well. I was going to ask Charlie to come up and do it, but I don't think he's keen on it. So I will do my best. So, if you remember, Outra deal with a lot of property data. And one of the problems we have in our property data is new builds, is understanding how many new builds are coming onto the market, what size they are, what price they are, how the builders are talking about them, the developers are talking about them, to understand why that one is different to that one. They're both three-bedroom houses, but why does that one sell faster than that one? So we need to get a whole bunch of data about new builds. Now, one of the problems about the new builds is there's not a lot of data about them, apart from what is sat in a developer's PDF. In other words, the marketing PDF. So what we're doing, let's get this right, is we're using Snowpark in the Snowflake environment to actually read those PDFs, to extract the data from those PDFs and put it into structured data. And I'll talk through this in a bit more detail. Why did Charlie choose Snowpark? Why did he go this way? Well, A, he came across it in May and thought, that's interesting, and away he went. But the main reason is that it sits on our data stores. So it's right next to our data. And if we want to, at the end of this process, which we do want to do, write data back to a warehouse or a mart, we can do that really easily because it's coming out of Snowpark into the native Snowflake. The second reason is that within Snowpark, there's a whole bunch of apps that are in there that you can use in that environment, which is brilliant. They're there, ready to use. The third thing is, you can bring other apps into it. And I think you bring Google OCR app into it. And so it wasn't in there. We brought it in, installed it, and we can run it there as well. We can also run APIs from this environment, in which we do. We run an API out to ChatGPT to actually get it to do some of the work for us. So that is the reason that we chose, or Charlie chose, Snowpark in this case. Really good business reasons. It's there. The next example actually talks about another reason, which I think is important here as well, massive computational power. Absolutely huge computational power, which you can then turn off when you're not using it. You'll shut this down, no cost. Fire it up when you want to do something. So, next slide. This one here. So we start by reading the brochure. We bring the brochure in. Oh, the other thing was about Snowpark, you can run Python in this environment, which is actually crucial to the process we're doing. So there's the brochure. I'm sure many of you have seen one of these things. This contains a huge amount of data, huge amount of information. Charlie has identified some of the things we want. We want the developer's name, we want the scheme name, we want the address of the property. Remember that address matching thing I was talking about? We want to be able to locate this and give it its unique property reference number in the UK. The property style, the property type, the room and the room dimensions and other things. Has it got a drive? Has it got an EV charging point and things like that? And that's what we want to pull out of this very rigid and unstructured data. So it's brought in. We try and read that with Python code. If we don't get anything, we then make an image of it, and then we use a Google OCR to get the data, the text out of that. And we then have a whole bunch of unstructured data. We have all of that stuff that is just unstructured data we've managed to extract from the PDF. The next thing we do is we then make a call and send the data to ChatGPT. And we tell it that we want it to structure it into a table with these headings. And off it goes, and it does it, and it brings back developer, Harwood Park, the address, the property style, and so on. And all of a sudden, we sent out unstructured data, and we've got structured data coming back, which we can then use. And we write that table into Snowflake, where we can use it. So that, for me, what we're doing there, in my mind, is really exciting. A data scientist, because of that infrastructure we'd built, because of the support and the fact that the engineering had the data there and the ability to write tables into Snowflake, we've actually been able to take a new data source into an area which we were really struggling with on new builds and end up with structured data that matches our other structured data, and we can actually start to use to understand new builds and their role in the property market. The next example is a thing called PISA, which is a priced-in scenario model. And even though there's some complicated words up there, in very simple terms, PISA does three things. It looks on the effect of interest rates on the depth of the property market. And obviously, we've all been talking about interest rates in the last 8 months. And if interest rates are high, the property market becomes shallow. If interest rates are low, the property market tends to open up and become deeper. More people can afford to buy houses. The market becomes deeper. More people want to move. So this is a very interesting thing to understand. The second thing is the ability of homeowners to repay their mortgage. That gives us a sense of affordability. What is the affordability in the market? How much stored equity is there perhaps, or how much headroom is there above that stored equity that needs to be paid off? And the third thing is that in this model is the granularity. I know that David, who did this, has written regional granularities there. We can go from national scale, we could go to regions, we can go to local authorities, we can go to postcode districts. We can actually drive this down to an individual household. So the whole of our data is built up from UPRN upwards. So there's 30 million data points that feed upwards in this model. So, David, why did he choose to do this in this environment? The first is rapid prototyping. He could get hold of data from Snowflake really quickly and use it for any purpose he wanted. He could use the Python code in Snowpark to do any ETL he needed to do. He wouldn't have to go and log a ticket with a data engineer and get a data engineer to prep him new data. He could do that himself for the prototype in Snowpark. But also, that massive computational power. Now, if you hold those thoughts in your head about being able to access the data from Snowflake and then work it in Snowpark really, really quickly, that then helps with that agility thing. Remember I was talking about agility? A data scientist can say, I want to investigate this, I want to have a look at this, and they can go and do it really, really quickly without any massive overhead of resource, either from technology or resource from other people. The other thing is, if we actually prototype something really quickly, it was that one here, speed to market. We can then harden this off and get it to market really quickly. We can then show the data engineers the Python code. We say, that's what we want hardened off into production. Let's go. So the other thing is, the other reason he used it again is because Snowpark is sitting right on top of our Snowflake instance and he can get the data he needs. He doesn't have to go anywhere else, down any pipes or anything like that. He's got access to the data he needs straight away. And this, he's not just writing the code and doing stuff, he's then giving this, writing it back into Snowflake as a table, which our data visualization team, led by Ryan, who's over there, can then build out the visualizations to actually show the impact of interest rates, of affordability, and granularity, here we go, granularity of the data and the insights that we've produced. Thank you. I'm very happy to take a few questions now in the last 5 minutes. I know I've moved quite quickly through what we're doing. Very happy to take a few questions now, or I will be going over to the Snowflake stand, quite seriously. If anybody wants to catch me over at the Snowflake stand for the next half an hour, I'm very happy to talk in more detail with the Snowflake guys around. If you want to know more about Snowpark, they're the people to go and ask. Are there any questions? Oh, there's one there.
Thanks, Kurt. I certainly enjoyed your insights and the very familiar challenges that you've been talking about that I'm sure many of us will have dealt with. I was just wondering where the integration challenges were, because you talked about taking Glossy's data in and then using ChatGPT, and obviously we all know about the hallucinations and the challenges of data quality. Were you also integrating and merging that data with other publicly available data sets, like ONS data, with Bank of England data, with the credit data, because you were talking a lot about LTVs and some of the other data that I would, in my old job, you would have got it from Experian or some of the other data houses?
You ask a very good question. Those 60 data sources I talked about at the beginning, and now adding ChatGPT sending stuff back to us. they all come in and they look completely different. They all have different data structures. They're all over the place. Some of them in themselves are not complete data sets and very messy. So yes, that part of our infrastructure where we talk about ingestion, we do a huge amount of work to normalize the data set itself and then normalize it so it can match other data sets. And the key for us is UPRN. That's why the address matching is so important to us. We link everything back to unique property reference number. We do consume publicly available data like ONS. We buy other data sets from some of the people you mentioned, but from other sources as well. We have other commercial relationships which bring in quite unusual data as well. So yeah, it is Alex Young is sitting there. Antonio's not with us today, but the constant headache for them is ingesting that data and making it look all the same. And one of the big transformations we're doing as we're moving to our new data fabric is building out our own data model based around UPRN, and that is a big piece of work. We have a full-time data modeler who's working on that, and Alex and I actually spend a fair amount of time with that guy trying to work out what we want our data model to be like. So it's flexible. It's got to be really flexible because we don't know what is coming down the road, what we're going to be asked to do. And documenting that data model is an exciting task. We have huge sheets of, I don't know what size they are, almost massive poster size of iterations of the data model that goes through. It's good because normally I talk about data culture. It's good for people in the office to see our data model. It's good for people to understand how complex it is. Any other? I think I'm. Oh, there's one over there.
Hi, I was just wondering, when you were talking about the your kind of principles of your data fabric, why you decided to choose build over buy? What was the kind of the reasons? Partly
cost and scalability. If you're going to scale massively, then cost will scale massively with proprietary technology. Particularly if we want to move into other geo-regions, we want to go to North America or have another instance, perhaps in Benelux, then you're multiplying that cost many, many times. I think the real clue is the infrastructure itself has IP. If we build this and get it right, this thing actually has intrinsic value in itself. And if you're buying too much kit in, then you will have a problem with that. You lose some of that value. It's not your IP. These guys are creating genuine intellectual property with what they're doing. And it's heavily documented. We now know how to build the infrastructure almost at the press of a button. The bits we buy, I would like to think, are almost plug and play. Could we take Snowflake out and put Exasol in? I don't know. Perhaps I'd like to try. I won't say that over there. But things like Tableau, the visualization tool, that should be plug and play at the end. If the data model that is for the consumption is solid, you should be able to do it. Lovely. I think I'm out of time. If anybody else has any questions, I'll be over on the Snowflake stand as quickly as possible. Thank you for joining me today.